To another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And in this episode, we're going to take a look at British cycling and the way they have deliberately ignored the Prime Minister from what he said yesterday, totally misread the room in regards to public opinion, and are willing to spend public money backing a man who wants to race as a woman, despite the world governing body currently saying he can't. And it actually gets worse once you get into the story. We're going to take a look at this. I'll put myself down into the usual corner. We'll do an investigation and a discussion. But if ever a group has totally misunderstood how they are viewed by the public, it is British cycling. And I think their attitude is somewhat misogynistic. And they may as well come out now and say, actually, women, don't bother. We don't want you to apply to race in the women's races because we've got men who are better women cyclists than you. But here we go. We'll have a look. So as you see, this is about that Emily Bridges fellow who we've talked about before, the male rider. We can call him that quite safely because he's still registered as a male rider with British Cycling. But the headline is, trans cyclist, or male cyclist as we would call him, Emily Bridges will receive public funding if cleared to compete in women's events. Confirm UK Sport as governing body defy Boris Johnson's belief that biological men should not be competing in female sporting events. Now, I mentioned yesterday with regard to this that there's a possibility of legislation. And I do hope that they go this route and start the ball rolling, no pun intended, with legislation, simply so that funding will then be withheld from men who want to be competing as women. If they want to compete as men and need funding, fine, give them the funding. I don't have an objection to that. But why should women lose out on funding because a man wants funding for the same sport? And it gets worse, but we're going to look. But just reading that second block. Emily Bridges is currently blocked by cycling's world governing body, the UCI, to race in women's events because he's a man. Bridges, who is a former national junior men's champion, had been cleared to compete by British Cycling because they are scared to say no. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson doesn't believe trans athletes should be able to compete in women's events. Yes, I can hardly believe those words are coming out of my mouth either. UK Sport have defied Boris Johnson by revealing they would be willing to give public funding to transgender cyclist Emily Bridges if he is cleared to race in a women's events. The Prime Minister entered the transgender debate on Wednesday when he said, I don't think that biological men should be competing in female sporting events. A view held, I think, by 99.9% of the population. So nothing contentious from Boris, just amazed that he actually came out and said it. But despite Johnson's calls for Bridges to be banned, UK Sport, the body responsible for distributing public money, taxpayers' money, our money, insist they would happily hand her lottery funding if she is deemed eligible to ride by Cycling World's governing body, and the next line, and is good enough to compete for Great Britain. So, is he going to be good enough to compete for Great Britain as a woman in a woman's cycling race? Well, yes, because he's twice as strong as all the women. Because he's a man. So, of course, he's going to be good enough to race as a woman if he's cleared. So, any female cyclists out there who are thinking, I know, I'll go get myself a bike, I'll go and get myself a trainer, I'll put in hours and hours of exercise for weeks and months and years, I will get myself to be the best female cyclist in the country. Great, that's brilliant, go ahead, do it. But you won't be going to the Olympics because about half a dozen men will be going instead. Oh, and you won't get funding because the men will have had that. That's how this is going now. UK Sport continue. We will support every or any athlete who a sport or governing body has deemed to have a future potential and is eligible to compete. UK Sport Chief Executive Sally Munday. Now, that means we're not going to fund women anymore. There's no point funding women. Women aren't going to win these races. We need to fund men. Men. We need men to race all these other men in the women's race. Because all it takes is a field of 8 men, or how many, I don't know how many people get on a bike in a race. However many men it is, will be how many men it is. Because there's no point in having a woman there, because she's going to be uncompetitive. And when the British female cycling record at whatever event is smashed, and you have 4 men competing on a track, and not a woman there, you've only got yourselves to blame, ladies. I'm with you. I'm 100% with you, right? But this will happen, and if it happens, you do have yourselves to blame. And here's why. If you get into a race, and there's a man in that race, and you compete, by competing, you're saying, it's okay, the man can take my place at the Olympics. The man can have my funding. And I'm not just my funding and my place, but the funding and the place of every woman who wants to compete in that sport. Now, I'm not having a go at you, ladies. I'm just telling you this is how it is. If you get into a race situation, any kind of competition, cycling, swimming, running, shot put, doesn't matter what the sport is, and there's a biological man competing alongside, turn around, pick your bag up, and walk away. All of you. And so when he wins the gold medal because he is the only competitor, it'll be a bit of a hollow victory. I mean, nobody will see it, because as soon as all the women walk away, all the crowd will walk away, all the sponsors will walk away, all the volunteers who help will walk away, and the sport will die. And then the governing body will sit there and go, but this isn't what was supposed to happen. No, but it is exactly what is going to happen. But we will continue with the story. I'll get off my high horse. Funnily enough, men and women can compete on a high horse, can't they? Because the horse does the work. We don't have a problem with that. Men and women compete at competitive shooting. We don't have a problem with that. Men and women compete in dinghy sailing. I don't know what they call it. Not the power things. You can't do it with the rowing, but the sailing in the little boats at the Olympics. You get them. Men and women compete there. Because again, it's skill, not strength. I've never understood why women have a separate snooker league. Because again, it's skill, not strength. Maybe that's one for the governing bodies to look into. But anyway, continuing. Bridges previously received, now think about this, Bridges previously received funding of at least $8,000 when he was on British Cycling's Senior Academy as a male rider named Zach, as recently as 2020. And in fact, he's still on that register as a male rider. And he can call himself Emily, it doesn't matter, he's still registered as a male rider. And in fact, he's a male rider. And it doesn't matter what hormones he takes, what testosterone reducing drugs he takes, what pretty frocks he wears, he will always be a male rider because he's gone through male puberty. But here is what happens. After beginning hormone therapy last year, he now wants to compete in women's events, but was blocked last week by the Union Cycliste Internationale, who have convened an expert panel to review his case ahead of a decision next month. He's gone through male puberty. He's going to be bigger and stronger than the women. And that's an end to it. British Cycling, who cleared Bridges to ride before the UCI's intervention, confirmed at the weekend they would consider selecting the 21-year-old in future teams if he was eligible, including for the Paris Olympics in 2024. So as I say, ladies, don't even think about going to the Olympics. It's only for men now. Only men are allowed to go to the Olympics. Let's set back 100 years of female sport, because A man who can't beat other men thinks, I know, I'll beat other women. He could then become the first British trans athlete to receive funding as UK Sport give up to 28,000 of lottery money to athletes with a strong prospect of achieving or contributing to medal winning. Well, of course he will win a medal because he's only racing women. He'll beat them. So give him the 28,000 that could have helped another woman, a real woman. Who knows? A woman might have got to the Olympics, but no, we're going to pay a man to go to the Olympics. Sorry, ladies. Now, Sally Mundy, the head of UK Sport, I have huge empathy for Emily. Yes, but doesn't give a shit about the women that she's now condemned to failure. She, apparently now she, even though he's a he has shown incredible courage, incredible resilience and huge determination. Yes, to beat women. When you're at the centre of something which is of national interest, which this has become, then clearly that creates a pressure and environment on any individual. That's right. But it's amazing how he's not capable of dealing it as a man and he has to revert to being a lady. Probably crying. Give me the money. I need a medal. I can't win one as a man. The UCI and British Cycling's current policy allows trans women to compete in female races if their testosterone levels are below 5 nanomoles per litre for a period of 12 months, and ignores the fact that every other metric gives men an advantage. Every single one. Blood oxygen uptake, lung capacity, strength, muscle density, muscle size, bone density, internal body chemistry. We'll just stick on this tiny one. That'll do. Just this tiny bit here. That's it. Never mind all this. We'll just look at that tiny thing. Because we don't actually give a shit about women. However, last September, the sports councils, which include UK Sport, concluded that for many sports, the inclusion of transgender people, fairness and safety cannot coexist in a single competitive model. Well, anyone with half a brain cell could have told you that. What is wrong with these morons? Nothing. They're not stupid. They are pushing agendas. This is what this is. They're pushing an agenda for the tiny 0.01% of the population. Oh, we don't want to look transphobic. You're not looking transphobic. You're looking misogynistic. You're looking like you hate women. You absolutely hate women. And that makes you filth and scum. You are filth. You are destroying women's sport for the virtue signalling of a man who wants to be a woman because he's shit at being a man. But to do that, to push that man up and make that man feel better about being a crappy man, you're destroying 51% of the population, taking away their opportunities, taking away their freedoms to compete, taking away their rights to funding, destroying women's sport. I hope you're proud of it. You should be ashamed of it. Now, I'm sorry about my rant, but I'm not sorry because it matters to me. It's disgusting what's happening. And like I say, women, you've got to get together, sisters. You've got to stand up and say, no, no, no. Enough is enough. And every single time, a man gets on the field of sport, into the pool, onto the track, wherever you go, you leave, you say, no, let the man win it, and walk away. And that's the only way it's going to change, short of a legal act of parliament. And that can come. Boris is on board with this, and if he pushes it, he'll probably get it, because he knows that 99% of the population would support this. And any MP who went up there and said, actually, no, I'm quite happy with destroying the rights and freedoms of women, they're not going to fare too well at the next election when every woman goes X, but not in their box. And there is indeed, I've mentioned this in another video, there is a whole campaign, if you want my cross, no, what is it? Respect my sex if you want my ex. And it's a marvellous thing, and I'll probably have to do another video on that. But I'm going to come up now because I've got to calm down and end this, otherwise I will start swearing very, very badly, and I need to calm down. So yes, as you see, the way it's going now is that regardless of public opinion, regardless of political pressure, these unelected, unchallengeable leaders of our sports take it upon themselves to say that we don't care about women, we don't think women matter, we're going to fund men who want to play women's sports, knowing that the men will then beat the women, but then these men will give us our medal hopes. Meanwhile, the women of this country, who were previously into their sport, wanting to be competitive, wanting to represent their country, are cast to the side, unwanted and unloved by their own governing body. Why should they bother? Why should they put their arse out of gear when they're going to get no reward for it and no respect for it? So, as I said in my piece there, the only way, short of legislation, the only way this stops is if you take direct action. And that is, let the men win. Literally, just let them win. If you're a swimmer and you look left, look right, and you see a man, oh my God, there's a man over there. You stand there and you wait, and the moment the gun goes bang, you stand up. You don't jump in the pool. You stand up, step back, turn and walk away. He has gone up that pool on his own. He'll get to the end, think he's doing ever so well, turn around and go, where is everybody? And in that moment, he's lost. I mean, he'll win the race, but in that moment, he's lost and the governing bodies have lost. And you know who wins, ladies? You. You win. That's the moment you win. And you do it in every sport, every time. And it'll take days, hours even. And what are they going to do? Oh, you didn't compete, we'll ban you from the sport. What's your loss? You're no longer competitive. And then, oh, they've banned you. But after about a week, they'll be begging you to come back because the sport will be dying on its arse. And they'll be out of a job. So, ladies, down to you. Do it. Do it, as the Emperor would say. Win. But win by not playing. It reminds me of war games.
Strange game. The only winning move is not to play.
If you like what you see and hear on this channel, please hit the subscription button if you haven't already. Ring the bell for notifications on future output. Leave a like, leave a comment, and until next time, stay safe, stay well, and goodbye.